Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast, part of the Bet Rivers Network. We join you on this Monday morning in the aftermath of obviously the Knicks crowning championship, their crowning achievement in San Antonio. And we await all the festivities this week, the parade on Thursday, which I'm sure will be a well attended event. It's been a long time coming in this town, that's for sure. Maybe it's a harbinger of things to come. Maybe it's the sign of better things to come for some of the other teams as we get a little more optimistic. So, a very good thing for the city. Obviously, it's still it still rings. You have to stop yourself. NBA champion, New York Knicks. Those words have not fit together very well through the last 50 years. So it does. It didn't sneak up on us. They clearly were getting better. They clearly were becoming a serious threat. The East opened up for them this year. Um, Add all that up, and you can see them in the finals. And as we talked about, get to the finals, you don't know what's going to happen. As I preached all year, I said, hey, get to the finals, and you never know. Are the Thunder supposed to win? Yes. Maybe they get injuries. They did. They not only got injuries, they got beat. So they weren't even there. Instead, this brash, young San Antonio team, which is still on a learning curve, took over, won game 6 and 7 in the Oklahoma City series, and then presented themselves to the Knicks. And it's a strange series. It really is. I mean, the Knicks' performance before that series was completely dominant. I mean, epically dominant. In this series, we all know the scenarios. We all know that the Spurs led the series. What was it? 65% of the time, 68% of the time, some ridiculous number that they were in front in these games. They had big leads. They had each of the games at their disposal. They had a chance to win every one of these games in the final 2 minutes, and they only won one. They had games that were in the 97, 98 percentile that they should win. One obviously even higher than that, and they lost them. Youth, yes. Inexperience, yes. I don't want everyone to make Wemby a villain out of this. I didn't understand. I thought he was very, considering his age and considering the pressures on him and everything, that he was so much the focal point. I didn't think his press conferences were bad. I didn't understand his last statement because it was almost out of character with the rest of the press conference. He answered the questions. I mean, he wasn't in a good mood. He answered the questions. He talked about what a learning experience it had been for him and what it would mean going forward. What he really let himself into is something I've always subscribed to, and it's something I learned from Pat Riley. And it's the idea of looking to that next season. It almost looks impossible because he brought it up, and I've heard Riley bring it up so many times. You have to go through an off season, go through the draft, go through free agency, go through training camp, go through an entire regular season, go through all those rounds of the playoffs just to get back to the same spot and try and make it right. And that looks, as he said the other day, Wemby, I got to look at 100 games first. Well, he does. He has to look at off-season work. And Shaq made the point, and he's absolutely right. Wemby needs to get stronger, but he will get stronger. He'll naturally get stronger, but he really needs to get stronger because he got pushed around. Towns wore on him. Robinson wore on him. They wore even OG at times wore on him, and he tired. 2 things with him, without any question, and I don't think he has a small man's I've heard people comment about, "Oh, he really is a frustrated guard." No, he's not. I don't buy that. He just not has not yet been nuanced in the low box game. Listen, when you have a player with that kind of ability, those hands, the ability to make 80 something percent of his free throws, his ability to put the ball on the floor, his ability to score from all 3 levels. When you have that, I mean, and be 7'5", when you teach him, and there's no reason he will be hard to teach. When you teach him a go-to move, a go-to low box move, and he has the perfect person in Tim Duncan to teach him. Whether it's a bank shot, whether it's a baby hook, whatever it is, or it's just a typical shoulder turn for the little baby jumper, it doesn't matter. He is going to be perfect one of those shots to where they go down or he goes fouled, and the 2 of those things happen 85% of the time. That will make him an unbelievably lethal force, and it's going to come. He'll get stronger, and he'll get a low box move. He does not have a low box move now. He's got things that obviously have to be worked on. Plus, that roster needs to be honed. You can see where it needs to be honed. They need an enforcer at the 4, and they need some help at the point. If I'm them, I play Castle at the 2 and Harper at the 3, and I play a big power forward and Wemby, and I love that team with the point guard. Fox's future there, I don't know. He had a nightmarish series. I don't know if he has a future there. We'll see. But at the end, he said, "I'll see you never." And people got off on that. Then they're now making videos of him not shaking hands, which he should have, and he didn't. Maybe he thought it was his place to get off the floor, and a lot of his players followed him off. A couple of players stood around, the coach did, and Cornette did. I didn't notice any of the players. Maybe a couple others did and shook hands with the Knicks. They should have. Okay, if they didn't, it's just youth. Don't make a big deal about it. So I don't think you're trying to paint him as a villain. He's young. He answers the questions. He went to the press conferences except for one day. He's a little chippy on the court, no question about it. But he gets pushed around a lot. But big guys always listen, part of being a good big man, and I don't care if you're going back to Chamberlain, you're going back to Jabbar, you're going back to Walton, you're going back to anybody. The good ones, they want to beat them up. They want to pound on them because that's the only advantage they have is to pound on them. Chamberlain was so strong it was ridiculous, but they pounded on him all the time. Tommy Heinsohn, who I used to talk a lot of basketball with when he was doing the games, and I loved him, told me, he said, "We used to beat on Wilt." Big men have to accept that. They don't have to like it. Kareem never liked it. No one likes it, but it's part of the game. And the Knicks were able to handle him. They didn't handle him often defensively, which is a lot of the reason why he did a great job. Listen, he cooled down a very hot Knick offense with his defense, and his defense is game changing. Game changing. That's how good it is. He was much more important on the defensive end than he was the offensive end in this series. Castle had a good series except for the last game. Harper had a really good series. Those days are coming for those guys. We know that. That's a heck of a nucleus. As for the Knicks, hey, you love the team that they've built. Doesn't mean you can't add. Hey, what you try to do is take a team that's a championship team and make it better, more efficient, and also, I always like adding a veteran guy, not for a starter, but even as a bench player, a veteran guy who's hungry to win a championship. Always like to add a guy who wants to win a championship because that guy can really be infectious in a team that's just won a championship. Because and we don't know this about the Knicks, but a lot of teams can be very satisfied with one. A lot of teams win one, never see him again. I don't think that'll be the case here, but I think the Knicks have a chance to be very good next year. But I always agree with doing things to make the team better and also hungry again. All right, let's get to some emails. Mike Francesa podcast at gmail.com. I decided this morning, and I should have decided it yesterday. It's my fault. Because I text back and forth with Jay Wright yesterday, and I want to get him on. And I should have told him yesterday, and I didn't, so it was my fault. But I want to try and get him on this week, and I want to go through some stuff with the three guys and just not only the relationships, but what he saw in them as young guys and everything else, and especially Brunson, who is obviously the leading man. But the three of them, it's a remarkable thing. It really is. And they all cited Villanova. They all talked about Villanova, which really is an incredible reflection on Jay in every way. Mike Francis podcast at gmail.com to send emails. Let's see what's on your mind. Matt, do the Spurs win this? I just saw this one while I was sitting here getting ready for the show. And it was the first one, so I glanced at it and I said, wow, that's a really good question. And I hadn't heard anybody bring it up. Do the Spurs win this series if Popovich is the head coach? That's a great question. Popovich was a little behind the scenes, but he obviously is not well. I don't know how much of this was execution on the player's part or coaching inexperience on the bench's part. That's always a hard thing to tell. Sometimes you indict the coach and really it was the players. But I would say this. I won't tell you that they would have won the series if Popovich was the head coach. I would tell you that I guarantee you it would have been a longer series. They would not have lost game 4. That I will tell you. They would not have lost game 4. Past that, I can't really make that claim. It would be too much to make that claim, even though Popovich is one of the great coaches of all time. Ben, does the Knicks and Brunson winning put more pressure on Aaron Judge to find a way to win now in New York? The only one who can answer that question is Aaron Judge. I mean, nobody else can answer that question. I think Aaron Judge has been motivated. Okay? See, it's a funny thing. You have here the player who has lifted his game in clutch times. Now, Brunson has done it to a big extreme. He has gone from being a second-round draft pick, which he shouldn't have been, to a bench player, to a starter, to a star, to a superstar. That is a climb that very few players ever make in any sport. Now, Judge, on the other hand, has dominated the regular season on a level that puts him on a different level than Brunson in the regular season. But he has been a poor big game player. Now, that can be just a random sampling, or some players just don't perform as well. And some players, and I think that's Jeter's greatest strength. Jeter's greatest strength are two things. Well, really three. I'm going to give you three. One is consistency. Two is leadership. And the third was he played as well or better in the big spot all the time. His game never waned in the big spot. He was always better in the big spot. In the postseason, he was a home run threat. In the regular season, very rarely a home run threat. In the postseason, a home run threat, a big play threat, a big hit threat, a big moment threat. Jeter rose to the moment. He also was the leader, and he won a lot. But listen, other guys on that team won a lot too. Bernie won for a long time. Bernie was the winningest player in baseball for many, many years. Him and Justice were the two top players as far as games won in the majors for a very long time. Bernie was an incredible clutch player. He wasn't a leader. That wasn't his game. That wasn't his mentality. It wasn't his personality. He didn't want to be a leader. Jeter was the leader. But guys like that are embraced so fondly. And in this day and age, they become more important than the guy who dominates the regular season. I mean, Judge could win a triple crown and an MVP and then hit 110 in the postseason, and people will be killing him in November. There's Brunson and Jeter are not Magic Johnson and Jeter, to me, are very comparable. Brunson is a different player because he is an offensive force. Jeter and Magic were subtle players. They were not offensive forces. Brunson is an offensive force. He took over the game the other night like Jordan took over the game, like Jerry West took over the game, like Curry took over the game, like LeBron took over the game. That's a very special level. He's that kind of prolific scorer. And why? Why? Hard work, no question. He has perfected his teardrop. He also has the most incredible footwork of any basketball player I've seen. Now, we always talked about Olajuwon's footwork. Brunson's footwork, I mean, it's almost like a Muhammad Ali or a gentleman Jim Corbett. His footwork is almost like a great boxer's. Incredible footwork. And it is such a rare gift. And it allows him to find spaces and cracks to score. Plus, he isn't confident. He is supremely confident to where he almost has a shield. Nothing affects him. Miss 5 shots in a row, I'm taking the next one. Make a bad shot, I'm taking the next one. Turn it over 3 straight times, I'm taking the next one. That's a rare gift, rare quality. Rare quality. And he has it. And he is an incredibly clutch player. Does it put more pressure on? It might put more outward pressure on him. Does Judge feel that? I don't know. Listen, the Yankees need to win. They're in one of the longest droughts they've ever been in. Judge needs to prove that he can dominate a postseason. When he does that, no one will complain about him anymore. Once he does it once he goes out and has a 5 home run, postseason and has a walk-off home run and, and they win a championship, no one's gonna say anything anymore. Because his regular seasons are all time. Brent, should the Knicks signing of Jalen Brunson be considered as one of the best free agent signings in NBA history? No question. Without that's not even an issue. I remember when they signed him. Now, this is a player I was incredibly well versed in. very familiar with the team, very familiar with him. Now, a lot of people were negative about that signing. I remember saying, "This Knick fans will remember the day they signed this player," but not in my wildest dreams. I thought he was going to be a very good player, an all-star level player for the Knicks. I did not think in my wildest dreams did I ever think he could go to the levels that he's gone to. I don't think anybody could have. Even they asked him if he thought of it, and he said no. He has become a superstar. He is a he's a 1A. He listen, Curry's won a lot of championships. Curry Curry is better. He's had a better career. He's had a longer career. Now, Brunson's career is not over. We don't know what it's gonna look like at the end. Curry also is not only the best long distance shooter of all time, he revolutionized the game, which puts him in a place that no one else very few people can go to. Plus, he also, which people forget, is one of the exquisite ball handlers, which people they look at the shooting and they forget how good he is at handling the ball. And his emergence now think about it. Brunson was a bigger collegian than Curry. They're both All-Americans. Brunson was a bigger high school player. He was he was a McDonald's All-America. He was a pretty highly recruited player. I don't know exactly how highly because of his size, but he was a McDonald's All-America. He was a Parade All-America. He was Mr. Illinois. He's a big time player. Curry was not even recruited. He wanted to go to his dad's school, Virginia Tech. They didn't even offer him a scholarship. Charleston started recruiting him in grammar school, hoping they could somehow get him, and they did. And the next thing you know, he's in the NCAA tournament, putting 40 points up, which led him to be an All-America player and a great college player. Put the school on the map. And then went on to a pro career that few could have forecast. But Brunson is without question one of, if not the best free agent signing. I'll tell you, I don't think any free agent ever changed the culture of a team more than he has. Art. I'm 73 years old and a lifelong Knicks fan who was fortunate enough to witness the 70 championship team. So was I. Could you break down how this 2026 Knicks championship team, I knew this was going to come up. Art, gladly, and I'll tell you this, it's a really interesting thing. It really is. Okay? Over here, you have the 69-70 New York Knicks, one of the great basketball teams and well-balanced basketball teams of all time. A center, Willis Reed. Now, what made the Knicks, as you know, was they had Reed and they had a center who was an all-star named Walt Bellamy. They had a guard named Howard Komives. They traded Howard Komives and Walt Bellamy for Dave DeBusschere, which not only brought DeBusschere to this team, one of the great two-way players in the NBA, but also moved Reed to center where he belonged. He was ill-cast for forward. So it changed everything for the Knicks. So now you have Willis Reed. You have Dave DeBusschere. You have one of the legendary collegians of the generation at the small forward spot in Bill Bradley. You have a guard who was thought of at that time as more of a defensive guard than anything else, which we learned was not the case in Walt Frazier, and a very good pro in Dick Barnett. Now, you also had a very interesting bench. Now, remember, the first weapon off that bench was one of the biggest collegians in the country, Cazzie Russell, who would go in for Bill Bradley at the small forward spot. And remember, if Cazzie came in and their bench was called the Minutemen, their bench was better than this Knicks bench. That would be the big difference on these teams. The Minutemen were a terrific bench. If Cazzie came in and hit his first shot from the corner, he was going to hit 6 more in a row. He was one of the great lethal streak shooters. Cazzie Russell could have started for any team in basketball. He was a basketball legend. So you had Bradley and Cazzie Russell, who were two incredible big stars when they emerged to this Knicks team. Frazier, who evolved from this defensive guard into this all-around guard. DeBusschere, one of the great two-way forwards in the sport. Okay, great bench. They called them the Minutemen. Stallworth, Russell, Nate Bowman, down the list. Now, on the other side, we have Towns. We have OG. What a great matchup DeBusschere and OG is. That's what made me smile. We have Bridges and Dollar Bill, and they'd be beating each other up all over the place. You have Frazier, and you have Barnett going up against, obviously, Brunson. And you want to say Hart. Now, you can play Bridges against Bradley. You can play, which I would because of the movement. You could play Hart against Barnett or Frazier. I could mix and match them all I want. I could bring Bridges to the backcourt and put Hart against Bradley, except that's going to take Hart away from the basket because Bradley is going to run around on the perimeter like a madman. Okay. The movement, the Knicks' offensive ball movement was incredibly exquisite. Exquisite. They had great long-range shooters. Bradley, DeBusschere, who would have been an incredible three-point shooter if they had had the three then. Now, the emergence of Frazier as an offensive player is something that took hold. Remember, Game 7 of the 69-70 series. Game 7. Walt Frazier plays the perfect game. 36 points, 19 assists, 7 rebounds, 5 steals. Shoots 12 of 12 from the foul line and 12 of 17 from the floor. I don't know how you could play a better 7th game ever than he played. Now, often the Knicks, because of Frazier's larcenous ways as a ball hawk, they would put, I would not have been surprised if they started Barnett on Brunson and then let Frazier help out and ball hawk. That could be very, plus how you utilize Bridges and Hart is interchangeable. You could play Hart on Bradley. You could play Bridges on Bradley. You might want to play Bridges on Bradley rather than the backcourt, but both those backcourt players are going to be an issue for Hart. So where you put Hart, you can decide, okay? But Bradley's going to run him ragged because he never stopped moving. He was perpetual motion. And the Knicks offense offensively was such a thing of beauty. The Knicks in the playoffs this year got that with Towns and with the way they orchestrated the offense and the movement off Towns, and then the way they moved the ball to get three-point shots. Remember, it's a completely different game now. The three-point goal wasn't in there, and that team would have loved the three-point goal. Cazzie would have been one of the great three-point shooters in all of basketball because he would have made that corner three so often. He would have made Champagnie look like a bad shooter. That's how good he would have been out of the corner with the three. He would have been insane with the three out of the corner. The short corner three would have been Kazi's. He would have had games where he made 8 of them. That's how good he was off the bench. I like the matchup of the 5. Now, this team is going to expect Brunson to score. The Knicks team, Willis could be the high scorer, but in any one game, almost anybody could be the high scorer on that team. That's how versatile they was, although Willis was the focal point. They all could score. They all could shoot. They all could pass the ball. They had great versatility. If you're asking me which team is better, the 69-70 team is better because of the bench and because that quintet was like was always a finely tuned machine. The Knicks struggle at times on the offensive end. They have clear role players and guys who will do the dirty work and don't have to score to be effective. Hart doesn't have to score to be effective. Bridges doesn't have to score to be effective. This team was much more nuanced and much more balanced. So if you're asking me, I would tell you this. I love the matchup with the two teams. The bench would have been a clear plus for the 69-70 Knicks. And I'm not discounting how good the bench was at times for this Knicks team, but that bench was better. They even had their own little name, the Minutemen. And I like the virtuoso combinations of the 69-70 team, which is considered, listen, that's not a knock. They're considered one of the great teams of all time. So, but that's a fun question. It really is. Thank you for that one. I like that one. I like it's a very good question with some perspective. I like that one. I really do. Brian is another tough question. Would this team have won with Tibbs as the head coach? No, would not. That's not a knock on Tibbs. Tibbs would have never solved what Brown solved. Towns, Bridges, bench. I don't think I'm not knocking Tibbs in any way. I don't think he would have won a championship with this team. I think Brown solved those things and deserves incredible credit for that. I don't think he would have solved those 3. So I have to say no. Phil, I think Saturday was the first time I heard Leon Rose speak. How does someone like that running a major organization manage to keep such a low profile? Okay. Now understand this. Leon Rose came into this as an incredibly accomplished person in his chosen field. He was a very powerful agent, also a very wealthy man. Did not need the job. Clearly must have always, in the recesses of his mind, considered himself as a basketball man. He had a basketball background and always wanted to be the architect of a team. Hey, there are those of us in the media who harbor the same thoughts. I always did. I would have given up in later years anything to have a chance to build a team. Now, I know that coming from the media, the odds on having an owner grant that to me would be virtually impossible. It'd have to be someone who was close to me in some other way, because it's just too risky from him from a standpoint of the people that he deals with and answers to. Hey, he doesn't have that background. Well, often the guys who have that background screw up completely anyway, as we've seen 1,000 times. Now you see someone who I'm sure a lot of people say, "Why is Leon Rose gonna be good at this?" Well, I'm sure he had the right people whispering in his ear. I can't tell you how much of this is Leon Rose and how much of this is World Wide Wes. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know which one liked and one liked and one they tied it to hip. The other guys work for Leon Rose, so Leon Rose is in charge. He's the final say, and he saw no reason to justify who he was, explain who he was. The owner knew who he was. The players knew who he was. The coach clearly knew who he was. He's had relationships with many of these people. He's got relationships throughout the NBA. He's a power broker for a long time in the NBA. And he had a vision. And it started with Brunson. And let's be honest, Leon Rose did nothing short. And I say Leon Rose, and that includes anyone that Leon Rose leaned on, because that's Leon Rose's decision. He decided to lean on those guys. So that's his decision. No one's going to make every decision by themselves. No one's not going to have someone scout players for him or say, "What do you think about this player?" Of course, that's going to be the case. No one's going to do this without having confidants or having people that they can talk basketball with. You wouldn't want to. So he's got his own group, but he's in charge and he's the final say. The buck stops with him. He had complete control. That's why when people told you, when they blamed Dolan for making a move in the Leon Rose here and say, "That's all Dolan," I told you it wasn't. Because I told you Leon Rose wouldn't stand for it. That was not the agreement. He didn't need the money. He wanted it to be his team. Dolan agreed to that. That's why I told you these decisions were always ones Rose agreed on. And everyone beat on Dolan. Dolan's taking over. He's ruining things again. He wasn't. Leon Rose was in complete control. That was the agreement. And look what he produced. So the other night when he stood there, I'm sure on one of the happiest days of his life, because he proved to himself what he probably harbored for years and years and years and years, the belief that he could build a championship team, that he had a vision for a championship team. And you know what? He did. You know, a lot of people who built teams came from other places in sports. It's not only the guys who have been in the front office all those years who are the smartest guys, but they're the ones who get the jobs because they have a resume, and most owners are afraid to take a chance. Dolan finally took a chance. I don't know what led him to turn the keys over to Leon, but it was the best thing he ever did. And Leon will be remembered in Knick history as an architect and as someone who put together great move after great move after great move. Brunson's the biggest part of this. The second biggest part of this is Leon Rose. No question about it. Not even an issue. Not even an issue. And I said to you, someone said to me, "Who do you want to talk to from the Knicks?" I said, "I only want to talk to one person from the Knicks. I want to talk to Leon Rose." Now, I don't know if he'll do an interview or not. I am going to, go through the channels to try and get him. I mean, I have some advantages in that regard, but I don't know that it's going to work. But I'd love to sit down and pick his brain about how this was done. Now, maybe he won't open up about that. I don't know. I don't think I've ever met him, to be honest with you. I don't think I might have bumped into him somewhere through the years. I don't remember. I'm sure he wouldn't either. I don't remember. We could have been in the same place at some time or another. I don't remember. But I don't really haven't spent any time with him in my life. But I would love to sit down and go through this with him because the machinations of it are unbelievable. They really are. And he's deserves any accolade that he gets. He deserves. So when you see him on a float, which I'm sure he'll be on, make sure you cheer him because he deserves it. And the other part of that is why did he keep such a low profile? I don't know. You'd have to ask him that. I think I really believe that at certain parts of you get to a point in life, especially when you've had some success, where little things don't bother you anymore. You're not worried about someone's criticism or comment because you know how little it means. Um, it's not that you still don't get annoyed about certain things or you still don't want to have success. You always want to have success. Whatever you do, if you're still working, if you're still breathing, you want to be productive. And if you're still breathing and if you're still working in the business, you want to do well. You want to do well at what you do. I mean, that's why you do it. Otherwise, why do something? If you don't want to do something well, if you don't want to do something to the best of your ability and hopefully better than everybody else, why would you try doing it? What's the reason? Just to be mediocre? I don't even understand that, to be honest with you. So he had made his riches. The bills were paid. He had had great success in his chosen field, and probably he always wanted to be a guy to build a team. And he got his chance in the biggest city in the world, with one of the biggest franchises in the world, in the biggest building in the world, and he built a championship team from the ground up. Doesn't get any better than that. Doesn't get any better than that. We'll see you later.